let me get through the very obvious stuff and then we'll get into the more speculative side. Well, the big news is obvious now that little Bob Chapek, is out and was caught off guard. Apparently, it was a surprise to him and a surprise to us that he was ousted very, very recently as the Disney CEO, and now Iger is back. And what is the news behind that? Well, I think it's probably three factors, and this is pretty empirical. It's not speculation. One, on the PR front, he just kept getting into little battles with his Marvel stars, and they just weren't working out with her. Scarlett Johansson, Simu Liu, and Shang-Chi, and the cast there. And then on just the financial side, these projects were losing money. They weren't losing as much money as people think. In fact, on the MCU side and Star Wars side, they weren't losing all that much money, but they definitely were declining from where they were with Phase 3 and from where Star Wars was just a few years ago. Financially, it just wasn't working out. These projects were bleeding money where once they weren't bleeding money, and that is just a fact. And then there's a third factor that little Bob, for whatever reason, kept putting in his loyal people into positions of power and just kept inflating these budgets for executives that didn't really need to exist and just adding all these weird layers of management that apparently weren't doing anything, just kept giving jobs to friends. And then recently he's just announcing all these layoffs, presumably not for his friends. It was just financially and politically and from a PR standpoint not going to work out in the long term. But I think everyone was kind of stunned it was cut off as rapidly as it was. Now, granted, things weren't improving, so clearly he was going to go sooner or later, but it's pretty shocking just how fast it was going to happen. This brings up the more speculative news from John Campea.
Me talk about Zack Snyder. I'm a big Zack Snyder fan.
I do know this. He needs to stop with the bullshit. He needs to get off social media. He needs to stop with trolling with all the Justice League stuff. He is not doing himself any favors.
I'm like, that's cool, but you're living in a fucking dream world, okay?
And all he's doing is turning off other producers and studios from wanting to work with them.
I'm like, wake the fuck up.
And I've had a lot of fun with him because he was dead wrong on the Snyder Cut. His predictions there were completely off, but occasionally he does know his stuff. And if you are a Spider-Man fan, good or bad, he did get a few things right there and was way ahead of the curve than most people who do scoops. So take this for what you will, but apparently Kathleen Kennedy is going to sooner or later also leave. Whether it's sooner or later, we'll have to wait and see, but Indiana Jones is coming out next year, so presumably if she is going to leave, they're going to have to announce within the next few weeks or next few months she's officially stepping down as the head of Lucasfilms and presumably will be replaced by Dave Filoni or Jon Favreau, which we all knew was going to happen anyway. Filoni has already been promoted. He's taken charge of most of the creative decisions, so it's kind of pro forma she is going to leave, but there's a lot of conspiracy theories thinking that she'll never leave, somehow got a zombie-like immortality, and somehow she has control over Bob Iger. Well, apparently that's not true, and Bob, whatever his personal relationship, is going to technically fire her before her contract is completely finished, and she'll presumably get a good payday from that. So what to think about this? Well, it's a little puzzling because whatever you want to think about Chapek, performance-wise, it wasn't working out. And it may not be to people's liking, but if you look at Star Wars, it's actually not in a bad place. The only major failure recently is actually Andor. And whatever you think about the quality of Kenobi and or Boba Fett, those things did get enough of an audience to generate buzz and put the company and Star Wars back on the map. And overall, the only major failure she's had has been Solo a couple years ago. But believe it or not, the sequel trilogy did make money. Each film was profitable. Each film was profitable in China. In fact, especially The Last Jedi. My prediction, if this is true, is, and which will probably shock some people, is we are probably going to get a lot more Rian Johnson content, a lot more Star Wars content, a lot more MCU content. But again, will this content be good? Doesn't matter. Will the content make any sense? Will it be a set of good stories? Iger just doesn't care about those things. What he cares about is profits, and those things were profitable. And the Disney formula has been, if something is profitable, like Black Panther, it's going to get a sequel. If it's not profitable, like Solo, it doesn't get a sequel. It is good and bad news if you're a Star Wars and MCU fan, that if you like that kind of content from Rian Johnson or Kevin Feige or whoever, you're going to get a lot more of it. Perhaps they're going to put a tidal wave of content, but will it be good? That, I think, is going to be a more open question. It's also going to be an open question how much of this is going to be to streaming, because the Chapek strategy, which, again, Bob Iger did originate, now maybe he screwed up how to enact that strategy, so how much of these projects will actually land on streaming is now very much in question, because Multiverse of Madness did really well as a theatrical release, as did Wakanda Forever. So theatrical is still very, very profitable, so they're probably going to try to readjust their strategy of putting some big projects on streaming, but allow a few big projects to go straight to the theaters. It's no longer the end of the theatrical experience as much as people think. Mixed news, if you do like that kind of content, a lot more of it is coming, but will it be good? Don't know, but that is where we are. Little Bob is out, and apparently KK is also going to leave very soon too. But what is I going to do to stabilize profits and make more money? It's unclear, but I would guess he's going to pump out a lot more content. Whether it's good or bad, a lot more content is going to come to us real soon.